Hi everyone, welcome to another Thursday Super Story. Last week we heard about Mary, didn't we, who saw Jesus at the tomb first thing on Easter Sunday morning. Well, there's lots of stories about things that happened on Easter Sunday, and we're going to hear another one today. This one is about two friends who are followers of Jesus. The two friends were walking along a road. It was a long road. They were heading to a village that was 7 miles away from Jerusalem. They'd been in Jerusalem for the Passover festival. They'd been with Jesus for a while. And they were talking and walking and walking and talking. There was so much to talk about. So much had happened that weekend. And as they were walking and talking, a stranger came and walked along with them. They didn't know him. But, it might be nice to make a new friend on the road. He joined them as they were walking along and the stranger said, "What are you talking about?" The two friends looked at each other. They couldn't believe it. How did this stranger not know what had happened that weekend? They looked at each other and they looked at the stranger and they said, "Are you the only person in the whole city who doesn't know what happened?" The stranger said, "Tell me about it." Well, the friend said, there was a man called Jesus. He was a prophet, a messenger from God. He was so powerful. He did so many miracles. On Thursday, the soldiers came. The priest sent soldiers to arrest him. The priest handed him over to the Romans and the Romans killed him on Friday, 3 days ago. They killed him on a cross. We thought he was going to set Israel free, but instead he died. But then this morning, some of the women in our group, they amazed us. They went to the tomb where this Jesus had been buried and they found it empty. The stone rolled away and angels there talking to them. They came back and told Jesus' disciples and some of the men rushed to see. They found it exactly the way the women said it was. The tomb open, the body gone. We don't know what to think now. Well, the stranger looked at them. He said, "Aren't you foolish?" The friends looked at each other. Goodness me, a stranger on the road telling them they were fools? They didn't know what to think. But then the stranger started talking. He took them through all of the scriptures. That's the old part of the Bible. And he started explaining them. Explaining how at the start of the world, sin had happened, how God had promised to send somebody to fix that sin, how all the way through there were all of these clues about who that person would be, that person would be the Messiah, and that when the Messiah did come, he would have to suffer and die, and 3 days later he'd have to come back to life again. The friends just looked at each other, amazed. They couldn't believe what the stranger was saying to them. All of these things, they made sense. It was like the friends understood the Bible like they'd never understood it before. All from a stranger on the road. What an incredible day. The place they were going was 7 miles away. It was getting to the end of the day when they got there. The stranger, he looked like he was going to carry on, but it was getting dark. The friends didn't want their new friend on the road in the dark. It might not be safe. They persuaded him he should stay with them. They were going to a house. They were going to eat food and stay there the night. The stranger should come. After all, someone who knew that much about God and the Bible, that person couldn't be bad news. The stranger agreed after a little while and they sat down to dinner together in the house. The friends looked at each other. They looked at the stranger. Will you say thank you for the food?" The stranger agreed. He took the bread and he held it up He thanked God for the bread and then he broke it. The friends couldn't believe their eyes. It was like they could see the stranger properly for the first time. Because that thing he did with the bread, that was so familiar. That's what their friend Jesus did with the bread. And this man wasn't just like Jesus. He was Jesus. As he lifted that bread up, the friends saw for the first time he wasn't a stranger at all. It was Jesus. Jesus had been walking on the road with them, explaining everything to them. No wonder he knew so much about God. The friends stared at each other. They couldn't believe that they hadn't seen it before. Then they looked back to Jesus, ready to greet him, run and hug him. He was gone. The bread was in front of where he'd been, but he was gone, vanished completely. The door still shut. The friends looked at each other again. They put their own bread back on their plate, and even though it was 7 miles back down the road, they rushed to put their sandals back on. They ran down that road all the way back to Jerusalem, all the way they'd travelled. They couldn't believe what had happened to them. All they wanted to do was tell the rest of Jesus' friends. They burst into the room where the friends were. No one could believe their story. They talked and talked and talked. What was going on? Was it real? Was Jesus really alive again? That's the story of the 2 men who met a stranger who turned out to be Jesus. And next week we're going to hear what happened next in that room. Remember, they rushed back to tell Jesus' disciples and followers what had happened. And they were all still in the room together when something really exciting happened. I wonder if you can guess what it is. So I have another challenge for you this week. This week, your challenge is to draw a picture of something that happened in that story. Maybe of the friends walking on the road with the stranger. Maybe of them all sat round the dinner table and the stranger who turned out to be Jesus breaking the bread. Or maybe when the 2 friends rushed back to tell the rest of the disciples what had happened. Maybe you could draw a picture of everyone being really excited. But that is your challenge for this week, to draw a picture. And if you send me a photograph of your picture, then in next week's video, or perhaps in a special video, I will put all the pictures that I get. I hope you guys have a good week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.